So we already talked about the end of that Oilers-Kings series from an Oilers perspective. I did also want to touch on it from the LA side of things though. Even though Jim Hiller, David Riddick, and Cam Talbot didn't necessarily do a bad job with this team, I do think we're going to see some significant change behind the bench and in net heading into next season. There is one guy on this team who's garnering more attention than anyone else though, and everybody seems to want to talk about him or have an opinion on him. It's Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I totally get why a ton of people are more fascinated with him than most. High draft pick, everyone remembers the saga between him and Torts. There was that infamous shift in Columbus that really didn't look good on him, and then he's involved in a really high profile trade with the guy who was drafted right above him, goes to a Canadian market, and even though it didn't start well for him in Winnipeg, he really showed, especially last year in Winnipeg, that he can be a good player. He also played great in the playoff bubble in 2020 against Toronto, so the flashes were there, and once he decided he wanted to move again, this time to LA, the Kings really seemed to think they had their next Anze Kopitar. I mean, they paid that kind of price in a trade, and in terms of the salary they gave him on his next contract, but at least in his first year in LA, it really didn't work out that way. Extremely underwhelming 40 points in 82 games for a guy who makes $8.5 million. Plus you add in the fact that for his entire NHL career there have been the rumors that he's not a good guy in the room. True or not, like having a reputation of being a toxic teammate is a really rough one to have. One of the worst, honestly. Like that's a tough one to shake off and deal with. The good news is though, once the playoffs arrive, the slate gets wiped clean and you get a chance to basically rewrite the narrative about yourself if you have a really good playoffs. Especially for a guy who's gaining more and more traction of being called the worst contract in the NHL. He proved in the bubble he can play really good in the playoffs. If he plays like that again, a lot could change for him. So what ended up happening for PLD? He had a terrible playoffs with 1 goal in 5 games. He was honestly a total ghost. The most I heard about him was when he took that holding penalty on Draisaitl. The word holding in air quotes, by the way. So now the Kings are out and are left holding the bag on a contract for a guy that really doesn't look good. And what makes it even uglier is the trade itself to get him before he signed that contract. I mentioned this in a video I made a couple months back about the trade, but even if the deal was just 1-for-1 Velarde for PLD, it would still look like a win for Winnipeg right now. But you add in Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, and a second round pick on top of that for just PLD, it's rough, man, from the Kings side of things. It really is. I bet you Will Ferrell is not happy about this. I know it was a really rough year, but still, after only 1 year, I'd be shocked if the Kings explored a buyout, or honestly, if they're even able to find any takers on a trade. They're gonna have to keep him, I think, and the silver lining is that he's only 25. He's done this before where he had a pretty bad year and then followed it up with a good year, so there is hope in that respect, but man, this has gotten ugly. Talk to me, Kings fans. Give me some realistic solutions for what you can do about this guy. I just know there's gonna be somebody who's like, oh, trade Dubois on a 5th to Pittsburgh versus Sidney Crosby. There's always one like that in every fan base. Honestly though, right now, I think all you can really do is just hope that he has a good year next year. I know these were do or die playoff games. I mean, the Kings didn't really have a choice but to deploy him in 3rd or 4th line situations, but if they are going to try to make this contract work, they can't do that next year. They know that. They have to do what they can to get his confidence up and get his offense going, or else this is just going to keep looking worse and worse. Give me your thoughts as usual. Kings fans, who are you guys cheering for in the playoffs now? Or at least hoping wins more than the other teams? Is it whoever plays the Oilers, or is it someone else? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. You're awesome.